Welcome to this episode of Litodio, where we bring you Book in Minutes, Insights for Life. Today, we're discussing 10% Happier by Dan Harris, a book that offers practical, down-to-earth insights into mindfulness and meditation, specifically for those of us who are skeptical, busy, or think we just don't have time for it. In today's fast-paced world, many of us are constantly juggling work, family, and personal goals, with little room to breathe. It's easy to feel overwhelmed by stress and the non-stop mental chatter we carry around daily. This is exactly where 10% Happier can help. Written by a high-profile news anchor who initially thought meditation was for people who collect crystals, this book is proof that mindfulness can make a real difference without taking over your life or changing who you are. Harris's story of finding calm and clarity in small, meaningful ways shows that even a slight improvement, just being 10% happier, can have a huge impact. It's all about learning how to quiet the inner critic, reduce stress, and gain a bit more control over how we react to life's ups and downs. The best part? Harris makes it relatable and actionable, with insights that any of us can start using today. So, if you're looking for practical steps to bring a bit more peace, clarity, and joy into your life, this episode is for you. Sit back and let's explore how 10% Happier can help you find that balance, no matter how busy or skeptical you may be. 10% Happier by Dan Harris is both a personal journey and a practical guide on how mindfulness and meditation can lead to a calmer, more fulfilled life. The book begins with Harris's story as a high-profile news anchor who, after experiencing a live, on-air panic attack, was forced to confront the stress, anxiety, and dissatisfaction that had quietly been taking over his life. Seeking a solution, he initially resisted the idea of meditation, viewing it as impractical and woo-woo. However, as he dove deeper into mindfulness practices, Harris discovered how meditation offered genuine relief and clarity. The book explores themes of stress management, self-acceptance, and mental resilience, challenging the myth that meditation is only for the highly spiritual or calm. Through his raw and often humorous narration, Harris demystifies meditation, presenting it as an accessible tool that anyone, even skeptics, can benefit from. The purpose of 10% Happier is to share these practical insights and show readers that just a 10% improvement in happiness and mental clarity can have a transformative impact on life. Harris's story resonated widely, especially among professionals dealing with intense stress, and inspired many to give meditation a try. The book's impact has been lasting as it helped spark a more mainstream interest in mindfulness and gave skeptical readers permission to explore mindfulness without feeling pressured to adopt it as a lifestyle. Chapter 1: Air Hunger. This chapter sets the stage with a pretty dramatic moment. Dan Harris is on live television, anchoring Good Morning America, when he suddenly has a panic attack right on air. It's a shocking moment for him, but it's also the wake-up call that gets him to reevaluate his life and his stress. He realizes that his high-stakes, always-on lifestyle as a news anchor has been wearing him down. Harris candidly shares the intensity of that experience and the inner turmoil it sparks. The main takeaway here is that sometimes we need a serious wake-up call to face the stress we're hiding from, and that confronting it can lead to growth. Chapter 2: Unchurched. After the panic attack, Harris starts looking for ways to cope, but he's skeptical of anything too spiritual or out there. He comes across Eckhart Tolle, an influential spiritual teacher, but has a love-hate relationship with his ideas. He's intrigued by Tolle's notion of the voice in your head and how it shapes your experience of reality, but finds Tolle's mystical approach hard to swallow. The key lesson in this chapter is the concept of mental chatter, that voice that criticizes, doubts, or distracts us. Harris realizes this mental noise is behind much of his anxiety, which gets him curious about mindfulness. Chapter 3: The Power of Negative Thinking. Harris's skepticism continues as he dives into mindfulness through the teachings of Dr. Mark Epstein, a psychiatrist who combines Western psychology with Buddhist teachings. He finds Epstein's practical take on mindfulness refreshing. Here, Harris starts to understand the concept of the second arrow, which refers to how we not only experience pain but also add extra suffering through our reactions to it. The main takeaway? It's okay to experience negative emotions, but we don't need to pile on by obsessing or catastrophizing over them. Chapter 4. The Price of Security. In this chapter, Harris dives into meditation himself, but it's not easy. He describes how initially sitting with his thoughts feels unnatural and frustrating. But he sticks with it, recognizing that his perfectionism and ambition, traits that served him well in his career, are also causing him a lot of distress. Through meditation, he begins to understand that his drive for security and control is holding him back from true peace. Harris realizes that while ambition isn't bad, unchecked ambition can be a trap, causing unnecessary stress and worry. The lesson here is that sometimes our strengths can also be our weaknesses. Chapter 5. 10% Happier. This chapter is where things start clicking for Harris. He's seeing small but meaningful changes from his mindfulness practice. He feels 10% happier, which is where the book's title comes from. Harris shares stories about feeling more calm, handling criticism better, and being more present. He's still skeptical but is noticing the benefits, which gives him more motivation to continue. This chapter's key message is that even a little improvement in happiness can be powerful, and you don't have to become a completely different person to benefit from mindfulness. Chapter 6. As he embraces mindfulness more seriously, Harris worries about becoming too zen and losing his edge. He starts looking for a way to balance his new, calmer self with his role as a tough, competitive journalist. Harris finds guidance in constructive anger and realizing he doesn't have to abandon ambition. He just needs to direct it mindfully. The idea is that being more present can actually improve performance, not weaken it. The takeaway is that you don't have to give up who you are to embrace mindfulness. Instead, you can integrate it to enhance your strengths. Chapter 7. The New Caffeine. Harris shares how meditation becomes his new caffeine, a tool to reset and re-energize himself. He talks about how he uses brief moments of mindfulness throughout the day, even amid stressful situations. This chapter emphasizes that you don't need to be on a meditation cushion for hours to benefit. Even short, mindful pauses can make a difference. The main lesson here is that mindfulness can be accessible and adaptable, even on a busy schedule. Chapter 8. The Self-Interested Case for Not Being a Jerk. Now Harris starts exploring the social impact of his new mindset. He finds that mindfulness helps him be less reactive and a bit more compassionate with others, especially his colleagues. He realizes that being nicer actually helps him work better with others and boosts his own success. The message? Kindness can be strategic, not just virtuous. Being mindful about how we treat others benefits us, too. Chapter 9. 10% Happier. The sequel. Harris continues deepening his meditation practice, facing resistance from his colleagues and his own doubts along the way. This chapter highlights his realization that mindfulness is a continual process, not something you perfect once and for all. He finds that sticking with it has given him more resilience and a stronger foundation for facing life's ups and downs. Here, the takeaway is that mindfulness is more of a lifestyle choice than a quick fix, and committing to it can bring ongoing benefits. Chapter 10. Epilogue. The Way Forward. The final chapter wraps things up, and Harris reflects on the changes he's experienced. He acknowledges he's not cured of his anxieties or his ambition, but he's learned to handle them better. He's found a middle ground, more balanced, less reactive, and yes, about 10% happier. Harris encourages readers to give meditation a try, even if they're skeptical. The main lesson? Mindfulness doesn't have to be about becoming a different person, it's about making subtle but powerful adjustments to the way you handle life. Throughout 10% Happier, Harris shows us that mindfulness and meditation aren't magic cures but practical tools that can make a meaningful difference in how we experience life. His journey reminds us that happiness isn't necessarily a destination. It's about finding ways to be a little bit better, a little bit more content, and yes, 10% happier. Here's a rundown of the main takeaways from 10% Happier. These are insights and practical lessons Dan Harris learned on his journey into mindfulness and meditation. Takeaway 1. You don't have to believe in meditation, just try it. Dan Harris was a huge skeptic of meditation at first, but he found that just giving it a shot made a big difference. His experience is a reminder that you don't have to believe in all the spiritual aspects to benefit. It's like working out. You don't need to be passionate about the gym to see results from lifting weights. Even if meditation feels awkward at first, the practice itself can gradually help you be more focused and less reactive. Takeaway 2. Small improvements add up. The idea of being 10% happier is literally that, a small, realistic improvement. Harris noticed that just a bit more calm, a little less stress, or being slightly less reactive can make a huge difference. Imagine having just a bit more patience with family or feeling just a bit less frazzled at work. It might not sound huge, but these small changes add up to a better daily experience. It's like putting a little extra in your savings every month. Over time, it becomes something meaningful. Takeaway 3. Your inner critic is not always right. One of the most freeing takeaways is Harris's insight into the voice in your head, that non-stop mental commentary that often judges, worries, or criticizes. Meditation helped him notice this voice without getting sucked in. Think about when you're stressed and have that little voice saying, "I can't do this," or "I messed that up." By noticing the voice without believing every word, you start to see it's just a part of your mind, not necessarily the truth. It's like realizing a car alarm is going off but knowing it's not your car. Takeaway 4. Respond, don't react. Harris learned about the concept of the second arrow from Buddhist teachings. The first arrow is the tough stuff that happens in life: stress, pain, disappointment. The second arrow is our reaction, which can make things worse. For instance, if you're stressed about work and then add guilt or self-criticism on top, you're actually creating more stress. Harris learned to catch himself before adding that second arrow, and it's a reminder that our reaction can make or break how we feel in tough situations. Takeaway 5. Mindfulness isn't about becoming a different person. Harris initially worried that mindfulness would make him too zen or take away his ambition, but he found that wasn't the case. Instead, mindfulness helped him become a more effective version of himself. He learned to channel his ambition without letting it control him. It's a reminder that mindfulness isn't about becoming someone else. It's about sharpening who you already are. You're just more aware, less on autopilot, and more intentional with your choices. Takeaway 6. You don't need hours to meditate, just moments. Many of us think meditation has to be an hour-long, serene experience. Harris found that even short practices, like a minute or two of mindful breathing, could help him reset during his busy workday. Imagine taking just a few breaths before a meeting or while you're waiting in line. It's a quick way to ground yourself. This takeaway is huge because it means mindfulness can fit into even the busiest days. Takeaway 7. Compassion can be self-interested. Harris was surprised to find that being kinder to himself and others actually helped him in his career. He calls it the self-interested case for not being a jerk. Basically, being a bit more compassionate actually improved his relationships and reduced his own stress. Think of a time when you were patient instead of reacting angrily. Not only did it probably feel better, but it likely helped the other person respond better too. This isn't about being overly nice, but about realizing that kindness can actually be strategic and helpful. Takeaway 8. Mindfulness takes practice but isn't about perfection. One of Harris's biggest lessons is that mindfulness is like mental exercise. It's about practice, not perfection. He's honest about the fact that he still has off days and moments when he feels stressed. But the difference is, now he has the tools to handle it. This takeaway reminds us not to expect instant results or total calm. Instead, it's about committing to gradual improvement, much like working out or learning any new skill. Takeaway 9. Accept your flaws and work with them. As Harris started meditating, he began to see his flaws more clearly, like his tendency to overwork or self-criticize. But rather than trying to fix himself, he learned to work with these traits. For example, instead of letting ambition control him, he used it more intentionally. This is helpful for anyone who feels they need to fix themselves. Harris's journey shows it's often more about understanding and managing our tendencies than erasing them. Takeaway 10. Mindfulness brings clarity and choices. Finally, Harris found that mindfulness didn't magically change his life, but it helped him make better choices. When you're more aware, you start catching yourself in those automatic patterns. whether it's overreacting, stressing out, or multitasking. Mindfulness creates a little space between a situation and your response, giving you a chance to choose how to act. It's like having a remote control for your reactions, so you're less likely to be thrown off by life's ups and downs. In essence, 10% Happier shows that mindfulness is practical and realistic, not a mystical cure-all. You don't have to change who you are. It's about becoming a slightly better version of yourself, learning to respond rather than react, and making small improvements that add up over time. Thanks for tuning in to Litodio. If you enjoyed this summary and want to keep expanding your reading list with quick, engaging insights, be sure to hit that follow button, subscribe, and share with friends who love books as much as you do. We'd love to hear what you thought of today's episode, so feel free to leave a comment. We'll link to the book in the description. Until next time, stay curious.